Now these are the four sabotages that are kind of above the water. Think of an iceberg. This is sort of like the iceberg, which is above the water, which you can see and verbalize, and it's pretty apparent. But below these four, there's the big one, and this is the hidden unmet needs of the adult. So when the adult is having needs that aren't being met, hidden unmet needs of the adult. Remember when we first started talking about Maslow's staircase, we said adults have these needs too. And two things can happen. One is that I didn't have these provided very well to me when I was a child, when I was young. And, John Bradshaw has called that, it's kind of like a gaping hole, waiting, wanting to be filled, that wasn't filled when we were young. And it's very hard to fill it. And one of the expectations that a lot of parents bring to the child-parent relationship is that this child will fill this gaping hole for me. And so when the child isn't able to do that for you, when the child's rebellious and ornery like kids, can be, we take it as a personal rejection, and the anger builds again. We talked about the anger, and the feeling of being rejected and not loved builds in the adult, and then it erupts as anger against the child. But kids, it will happen as the relationship goes along that these stair steps can be strengthened, but not necessarily. The relationship with the child may tear them down, too, and you can't expect the child to fill them for you. I remember in one of my classes there was a father who had been told by the courts to come to class. He'd had such a troubled childhood himself. He had been in, I don't know how many foster homes it was, and he never felt he belonged anywhere. He never felt that anyone cared about him. There was no sense of unconditional love. There was no sense of respect. And he remembered one particular time he told about that when he was about 8th grade, and it struck him. We all have these moments in our life where things gel and then we make a decision about who we are. And he'd gone out to talk to the neighbor man. The neighbor man was evidently a pretty nice guy and willing to talk to him. And he was out by the fence talking to the neighbor guy, and his foster father hollered at him. He said, "You get in here, you little shit. He doesn't want to talk to the likes of you." And we understood this man for the first time, that he wasn't able to provide for his kids because he was hoping they'd provide for him, and when they couldn't, he got angry at them. And then his anger unleashed as beatings and scoldings, but we understood what had happened. And so in our parenting classes, when we get to this point, we suggest that if you find in your relationship with your children that there's an awful lot of anger erupting, and you're not quite sure even where it's coming from, it isn't even somehow related to the child, that it may be good to start going to some counseling and find out that how you can deal with that before you can go on with just something like parenting corrections. There was another story I'm reminded of. This illustrates what's happening when your needs aren't being fulfilled in this day, in this moment. I mean, we all have times, like my husband and I, the story I told you about, our needs weren't being filled at that time in our life. We were too stressed out, too tired, being torn in a million different directions by other people's wants. And so these steps were not being provided very well for us. And one mother told a story. She said there was one time her job was so stressful, and she said, I was gone a lot, and I was out of town a lot, and I finally asked my husband, will you please take care of the household tasks, do the cooking, do the dishes, just for 2 months, just till I get this project finished, 2 months, and then I'll take over and do it later. He said he would. So she came a week or so later, she came into the kitchen and she was looking for a little plastic Tupperware thing to put some leftover chili in, and the dang thing wasn't where she usually put it. He'd put it somewhere else because, he didn't put things where she said she felt this rage at him, how stupid of him. Why didn't he put it back where I can find it? And she realized then, because she was in the class and we've been talking about this, I'm not mad at him at all. I'm not filling these needs. I'm not doing anything nice for myself, and I'm just taking it out on whoever comes by. And we do the same thing with our kids. We get angry and take it out on them when it's not their fault at all. She said, I guess I decided I hadn't been doing anything nice for myself, and at least I could go take a nice long bath with a bubble bath, and that's what she did. It's interesting, though, when you just recognize these needs in yourself, how it diffuses the rage. At least for me it does. Just to be able to articulate to myself, it helps. So that's the hidden part of the iceberg, the hidden unmet needs of the adult. And I remember one time Lorraine and I were giving a presentation to a class at the community college. These were young mothers who were learning skills so they could get jobs, working on their GEDs. They had children at home. And one of the young mothers asked the question, how can I help my children get their needs met when I don't have any way to get mine met? Can I expect them to help me meet my needs? And we said, no, you can't ask that of them. They're just children. It might happen, but you can't expect it of them. And we had half the class suddenly break into tears. And that was the first time I'd realized what a tough situation that is for people who don't get enough of their support needs met. So there you have it, sabotage. And hope you'll think about that this week when you go home and anytime you deal with kids, and just experiment a little bit. I don't know which one you'll find the toughest not to do. Talking and talking is a real toughie, especially for verbal people. So I wish you luck and have a good time with your kids.